Shalom from Jerusalem. In our week's portion, Mishpatim, we learn about the small details of how man has to interact with his fellow man in order to have a just society. The laws of damages, the laws of loaning money to his fellow man, the laws of slavery, all are detailed in this week's portion in order to have social justice, in order to obtain a society which will endure and last throughout the ages. Last week, we found Moshe Rabbeinu going up to Mount Sinai and bringing back the 10 Commandments, the present to the Jewish people and to the entire world, so to speak, the roadmap, the big picture. But in our weekly portion, we find the very smallest details of how man has to sustain itself and how a society can endure. We've seen throughout history great empires arising, conquering the entire world, whether it was the Babylonians, the ancient Greeks, the Republic of Rome, which lasted hundreds of years, but all of them fell into decay and eventually were conquered and gone. Just a footnote in history. Why was that? What caused their downfall? If it wasn't for the evil traits which make up man and their power struggle, corruption, their love of money, lust, all of these caused the downfall of the great empires. Unfortunately, ein chadash mitachat hashemesh. There's nothing new under the sun. And these evil traits run after us to this very day, and it makes no difference whether society is made from socialism, communism, democracy. In the end, it all boils down to the persons themselves. If the people have these bad traits and the evilness, then the society will not endure. This is what the Parsha is teaching us. Social justice for everybody. Loaning to your fellow man, giving out to your fellow man, and helping companionship. Take, for example, Eved Ivri, the Jewish slave. In the ancient days, if you were a slave for the Roman Empire, you would be a slave forever, as long as that would last, and you'd have a fate worse than death. But in Jewish law, it's totally different. Our rabbis teach us that whoever acquires a slave actually acquires a master for himself. For instance, if the master sleeps with 2 pillows, the slave also must have 2 pillows. If the master eats a nice steak dinner, the slave also must partake of the steak dinner, and so forth. In this way, not only is there social justice, but it's a lesson for the slave himself, who became a slave because he either stole money or was in poverty. And this way he learns by being by his master for these years to be a better person, to be a giving person. This is the only way that society can endure. And that is why the Jewish people, for thousands of years, has been able to hold themselves together while other nations arose but were gone throughout the world history. The Jewish people endure and stay on because of this particular point of social justice. Interesting, we find, as we read the Parsha, and we read about all these particular laws, we come to the concluding part of the Parsha, where the Torah tells us, I shall send my angel before you into the land of Israel, where the nations live, the 7 nations live. And God says, I shall wipe them out. First of all, what does this have to do with the social justice that's talked about in most of the weekly portion? It seems to be 2 separate issues, that the Jews will eventually come into the land of Israel, and God says that he will annihilate all the nations that live here before the Jewish people. The answer is quite simple. Influence. God does not want the Jewish people to be influenced by the nations that lived here. These people have the bad traits. These are evil people. They worship the idols. These people are people who are corrupt, who have lustful ways. And this should not be part of the Jewish people. The Jewish people should not learn from them. And so God tells us, yes, when there has to be social justice, when there has to be a just society, it can only abstain itself when you do not learn the ways of these nations before you. Be a light to the nation can only be done when there is separation. So much so that we find in the Code of Jewish Laws by the Rambam, Maimonides, that he states that a non-Jew who does not accept upon himself the 7 mitzvahs of the children of Noah cannot even step foot in the land of Israel. Today, unfortunately, we have this tremendous influence that has funneled into the land of Israel. It makes it very difficult for us to shine. There must be separation. There must be separate between light and darkness, between day and night. In this fashion, the Jewish people could shine their light into the entire world. This is the message that we bring home from the weekly Parsha. Social justice, that's the only type that can endure. The other societies, when you have bad people with bad traits, they'll eventually fall down and decay. Nothing will remain from them. And there must be separation between the Jewish people and the nations. In this way, we could finally be a light unto the entire world, as we are supposed to be, a holy people. I'm Levi Chazan from Yeshivat Rayoni Yehudi in Yerushalayim. Shabbat Shalom.